Imagine a riverbank more than 250 million years ago. The forests were thick with towering club mosses. Dragonflies the size of hawks patrolled the skies, and armored fish lurked beneath the surface. This was the Permian world, a time long before dinosaurs, when amphibians were among the dominant creatures on land and in water. And in these primeval rivers swam one of the strangest animals ever to evolve, Diplocaulus, the lizard with a boomerang-shaped head. At first glance, Diplocaulus looks almost cartoonish, with its wide, crescent-shaped skull jutting out on both sides like wings. But this was no accident of nature. That peculiar head may have been a finely tuned adaptation, helping Diplocaulus cut through water currents, stabilize itself while swimming, and perhaps even ward off predators by making it difficult to swallow. In a world filled with giant predators, from fin-backed Dimetrodon stalking the shores to monstrous amphibians hunting in the shallows, every evolutionary edge meant the difference between survival and extinction. The story of Diplocaulus is more than just the tale of a strange fossil. It's a window into an era when amphibians were not just small and fragile, but giants of rivers and swamps, shaping the ecosystems they lived in. By studying the boomerang head of Diplocaulus, scientists unlock secrets about ancient physics, predator-prey dynamics, and the bizarre experiments of evolution itself. So join us as we dive into the rivers of the Permian and explore the mysteries of this extraordinary creature, an amphibian stranger than anything alive today. Diplocaulus first emerged in the late Carboniferous and thrived well into the Permian, spanning a time of immense ecological transformation. The world it inhabited was humid, swampy, and teeming with life forms that look alien by today's standards. Towering lycopsid trees formed dense canopies, while giant insects filled the air with a steady hum. In such an environment, amphibians grew large and diverse, occupying ecological niches that would later be dominated by reptiles and mammals. Diplocaulus carved out its own place as a river-dwelling specialist, and its most striking feature was its bizarre boomerang-shaped skull. This head, with its two elongated projections extending outward like a crescent moon, has puzzled paleontologists for decades. At first, scientists wondered whether it was a defensive feature, making the animal appear larger and harder to swallow. Later, studies proposed that it may have functioned as a hydrodynamic adaptation, creating lift in water much like the wings of an airplane. If true, Diplocaulus was not only unusual in appearance, but also a master of aquatic maneuverability, capable of darting through ancient rivers with grace. Its body, by contrast, was relatively modest. About a meter long, Diplocaulus had a salamander-like form with sturdy limbs, a muscular tail, and skin likely similar to modern amphibians. It probably spent much of its time submerged, lying in wait for smaller prey like fish, insects, and even young amphibians. With its flat head pressed low in the water, it could remain inconspicuous until it snapped forward with surprising speed, engulfing its quarry in a quick strike. But life for Diplocaulus was far from easy. Rivers of the Permian were hunting grounds for numerous predators, including fin-backed synapsids such as Dimetrodon and large carnivorous amphibians like Eryops. In such a hostile world, even a strange adaptation like the boomerang head may not have guaranteed safety. Instead, survival depended on constant vigilance, speed in water, and the ability to slip away when danger approached. The very shape of its skull may have been a double-edged sword. While offering hydrodynamic advantages, it may have made movement on land clumsier, restricting the animal to aquatic refuges. Fossil discoveries of Diplocaulus across North America and parts of Africa reveal not only its persistence, but also its wide distribution. These fossils, often remarkably preserved, allow scientists to reconstruct both its anatomy and its role within ancient ecosystems. Each skull tells a story, with subtle variations in shape hinting at different species or evolutionary experiments within the Diplocaulus lineage. Some specimens suggest juveniles had proportionally smaller skull extensions, which grew more prominent with age, perhaps as a display trait or to enhance survival as the animals matured. The more scientists study Diplocaulus, the more it becomes a symbol of nature's eccentric creativity. Evolution does not always favor sleek, efficient designs. Sometimes survival depends on features that seem awkward or even comical to human eyes, but that served critical roles millions of years ago. Diplocaulus reminds us that amphibians once stood at the center of evolutionary innovation, testing strategies for life in water and on land, long before reptiles claimed dominance. When we picture the Permian world, it is easy to imagine vast herds of reptilian predators or giant insects buzzing through the trees. Yet in the rivers, Diplocaulus was a constant presence, a creature whose silhouette would have been instantly recognizable, gliding beneath the water's surface, its head slicing through currents with quiet efficiency. For over 20 million years, it endured in these habitats, a testament to the success of its design. Its eventual disappearance, along with so many other Permian creatures, underscores the fragility of life when faced with Earth's greatest mass extinction. To peer at a Diplocaulus fossil today is to glimpse a form of life that seems fantastical, almost mythical. Its crescent skull looks more like a symbol carved in stone than the bones of a real animal. Yet it was real, and for countless generations it swam the rivers of an ancient Earth, navigating currents, hunting prey, and avoiding predators. In studying its strange design, we not only reconstruct the life of a single amphibian, but also touch the broader story of how life adapts, transforms, and sometimes vanishes in the face of shifting worlds. The mystery of the boomerang head lies not only in its shape, but in the questions it raises about locomotion and survival. Hydrodynamic tests with models suggest that water flowing around the extended skull created lift, almost like a hydrofoil, allowing Diplocaulus to remain buoyant or maneuver with greater agility. In the swirling currents of ancient rivers, this adaptation may have been crucial. Instead of struggling against turbulence, Diplocaulus could ride the flow, gliding with stability that other amphibians lacked. Such an advantage would have made it a stealthy predator, able to position itself for ambushes with minimal effort. At the same time, the broad skull may have served as a deterrent to larger predators. Imagine a Dimetrodon lunging at a smaller creature in the shallows. A streamlined body could be swallowed in one bite, but a flat, boomerang-shaped head would lodge in a predator's jaws, making Diplocaulus a far less convenient meal. Nature often favors prey that are costly to attack, and the cumbersome shape of Diplocaulus may have been enough to persuade hunters to look elsewhere. The fossil record shows repeated success of this design, as the animal persisted for millions of years despite living among formidable predators. Daily life for Diplocaulus likely revolved around the rhythms of the river. It would have lurked beneath vegetation mats or buried itself in silt, waiting for smaller fish to dart too close. With a sudden flick of its body, it could surge forward and snap its jaws shut, consuming prey in an instant. Unlike today's amphibians, which are generally modest in size, Diplocaulus belonged to an age when amphibians filled dominant ecological roles. Its 1 meter length made it a capable hunter, bridging the gap between small invertebrates and the larger, more powerful predators of the time. The Permian environment shaped both its opportunities and its challenges. This was a period of fluctuating climates, with seasonal droughts that could shrink rivers and concentrate prey and predators alike. During wet seasons, Diplocaulus may have thrived in sprawling floodplains, using its peculiar head to navigate strong currents. In drier times, it might have retreated to deeper pools, relying on its aquatic agility to outlast harsher conditions. Fossilized riverbeds, where Diplocaulus remains have been found, suggest environments rich in vegetation, teeming with insects, and hosting diverse amphibians, a dynamic stage where each adaptation was tested against shifting ecological pressures. Reproduction for creatures like Diplocaulus remains speculative, but by analogy with modern amphibians, they likely laid eggs in water. Young would have emerged as aquatic larvae, vulnerable to predation but equipped with gills for underwater breathing. As they grew, the signature boomerang head developed, offering increasing survival advantages. Juvenile fossils reveal smaller, less pronounced skull projections, which became exaggerated in adults. This growth pattern suggests that the head's full function, whether hydrodynamic or defensive, was most critical later in life, when competition and danger were greatest. The very survival of Diplocaulus across such a broad stretch of geological time speaks to the effectiveness of its adaptations. While many amphibians appeared and vanished quickly, Diplocaulus remained, evolving into multiple species across North America and beyond. Its presence in different regions hints at a versatility that went beyond its odd skull. It was not merely a one-trick survivor, but an adaptable hunter, capable of enduring environmental change and dispersing into varied habitats. Yet, even successful adaptations have their limits. As the Permian drew to a close, ecosystems shifted dramatically. Increasing aridity transformed wetlands into drier landscapes, favoring reptiles better suited to conserving water and thriving on land. Amphibians, reliant on aquatic environments for reproduction and survival, declined in diversity and abundance. Diplocaulus, with all its peculiar brilliance, eventually disappeared, leaving behind only the fossils that today intrigue scientists and spark wonder. Its extinction was part of a broader collapse that wiped out the majority of life forms during Earth's greatest mass extinction, reshaping the trajectory of evolution forever. Still, the legacy of Diplocaulus endures. Paleontologists study casts and reconstructions, debating the hydrodynamic properties of its head, comparing bone structures across specimens, and even using digital models to simulate its movement in water. Each new analysis adds nuance to our understanding. Was the head primarily for swimming efficiency, for defense, or even for display and mating rituals? The truth may lie in a combination of all three, a testament to how evolution rarely favors a single function but blends adaptations into multi-purpose tools. For modern audiences, Diplocaulus captures the imagination because it looks so otherworldly. Unlike dinosaurs, whose forms often mirror animals we recognize, Diplocaulus seems like a creature sketched from fantasy. Its silhouette is so striking that it could easily be mistaken for a mythical beast rather than a genuine amphibian. Yet this bizarre shape was once a familiar sight in ancient rivers, a natural design honed over millions of years. It challenges our assumptions about what is normal in evolution and reminds us that survival sometimes depends on the strangest solutions. The fascination with creatures like Diplocaulus lies not only in their biology, but also in the stories they tell about deep time. They remind us that life has always been experimenting, branching into forms both elegant and bizarre. For every sleek predator, there's a counterpart shaped by oddities that defy our expectations. Diplocaulus was one such creature, embodying the creativity of evolution in its wide boomerang skull and amphibian body. By studying it, we glimpse both the beauty and the unpredictability of nature's endless invention. To reconstruct the life of Diplocaulus, paleontologists must rely on more than bones. They examine the sediments where fossils are found, piecing together the ancient environments that shaped its survival. Many specimens come from river deposits rich in plant debris and aquatic organisms, suggesting lush floodplains with abundant water sources. These habitats would have provided ample food and shelter, but also constant threats. Fossil evidence of predators like Eryops and Dimetrodon in the same regions tells us that Diplocaulus shared its world with giants that would not hesitate to prey upon it. In this dangerous ecosystem, every advantage mattered, and the peculiar head of Diplocaulus may have been the adaptation that tipped the scales in its favor. The biomechanics of this animal continue to intrigue scientists. Computer models replicate the flow of water around its head, testing whether it truly functioned like a hydrofoil. Early experiments suggest that the extended skull lobes could have generated lift, helping Diplocaulus rise in the water column without expending much energy. In evolutionary terms, such efficiency could mean the difference between thriving and perishing, while other amphibians may have struggled to maintain buoyancy. Diplocaulus might have glided effortlessly, conserving energy for hunting and escaping predators. The skull may have even allowed rapid vertical movements, enabling the creature to ambush prey from below with startling speed. Despite its apparent aquatic mastery, Diplocaulus was not invincible. Fossilized remains sometimes show bite marks, scars of encounters with larger predators. The very adaptations that aided survival could also pose disadvantages in certain circumstances. A wide head may have improved hydrodynamics, but it also made navigating dense vegetation more difficult. On land, where movement required agility, such a skull would have been cumbersome. These trade-offs illustrate the delicate balance of evolution, where every advantage carries potential costs. Diplocaulus thrived in water, but was likely awkward on land, making it a specialist dependent on stable aquatic habitats. The story of Diplocaulus also offers insights into broader patterns of amphibian evolution. In the Paleozoic era, amphibians were remarkably diverse, ranging from small insectivores to massive apex predators. They occupied niches that would later be filled by reptiles and mammals, experimenting with body forms and survival strategies. Diplocaulus represents one branch of this experimentation, a lineage that embraced a bizarre but effective solution to life in rivers. Its existence demonstrates that evolution is not a straight line toward efficiency, but a branching tree, full of unusual designs that sometimes endure for millions of years. The fossil record of Diplocaulus is particularly rich in Texas, where deposits of the Permian redbeds have yielded numerous specimens. These discoveries have allowed paleontologists to study growth stages, species variation, and even potential sexual dimorphism. Some fossils suggest differences between males and females, though interpretations remain debated. Others point to distinct species within the Diplocaulus genus, each with slightly different skull proportions. These variations may reflect adaptations to local environments, evidence that the boomerang head was not a static trait, but one that evolved and diversified over time. For the people who first unearthed Diplocaulus fossils in the 19th century, the creature must have seemed unbelievable. Early paleontologists puzzled over the strange bones, struggling to make sense of their purpose. Some initially thought the skull lobes were damaged or deformed. Only with further discoveries did the full pattern become clear. This was not an accident of fossilization, but a deliberate, repeated feature of an entire genus. The realization transformed Diplocaulus from a paleontological curiosity into one of the most iconic amphibians of prehistory. Its skull is now recognized as one of the most distinctive adaptations in the fossil record. The fascination extends beyond science. Artists, writers, and enthusiasts are drawn to the strange form of Diplocaulus, often depicting it in illustrations of prehistoric life. Its silhouette is instantly recognizable, a reminder that evolution produces shapes that seem as if they belong to myth. In popular culture, Diplocaulus sometimes appears in games and media as a creature of fantasy, blurring the line between scientific reality and imagination. This cultural resonance underscores the power of unusual fossils to capture human curiosity and inspire wonder. When considering the ecology of Diplocaulus, one must also imagine its interactions with other creatures. In rivers filled with fish, crustaceans, and insects, Diplocaulus was both hunter and hunted. Its wide head may have given it an edge in ambushes, but it also relied on the abundance of prey that Paleozoic waterways supported. In turn, it contributed to the balance of its ecosystem, keeping smaller populations in check while feeding predators higher on the chain. Such interactions reveal the interconnectedness of ancient environments, where each adaptation rippled outward to influence countless other species. Ultimately, the life of Diplocaulus illustrates a central truth of evolution. Survival is not about perfection, but about fit. The boomerang head was not flawless, but in the rivers of the Permian, it was good enough to secure millions of years of success. When climates shifted and environments changed, even effective adaptations could not guarantee survival. Diplocaulus vanished, but its fossils endure, offering us glimpses into a world where amphibians reigned and nature's experiments produced creatures as strange as any imagined in myth. To stand before a Diplocaulus fossil today is to connect with that vanished world. The bones, locked in stone for over 250 million years, tell a story of rivers long gone, of predators and prey locked in eternal struggles, of evolution's creativity and impermanence. Each specimen is a message from deep time, whispering of an amphibian whose strange head once sliced through ancient waters. By studying it, we honor not only the animal itself, but the boundless diversity of life that has shaped Earth's history. The strangeness of Diplocaulus becomes even more striking when compared to modern amphibians. Today, frogs, salamanders, and caecilians fill specialized niches, but remain relatively small and unassuming. None bear the exaggerated skull of Diplocaulus, nor do they dominate ecosystems the way their ancestors once did. To imagine a river alive with these boomerang-headed creatures is to imagine an amphibian world far removed from what we see now. Their extinction marked the end of one evolutionary path, leaving no direct descendants. But the fossils remind us of how rich and varied amphibian history truly is. In the layered rocks of Texas and Morocco, each fossil discovery of Diplocaulus opens new questions. Some skulls are nearly pristine, preserving fine details of bone structure. Others are fragmented, telling stories of death by predation or transport in river currents. These remains provide rare glimpses into behaviors otherwise lost to time. A cluster of juvenile fossils suggests that young may have gathered in groups, perhaps seeking safety in numbers. If true, it paints a picture of social behavior in a creature long thought to be solitary. Evolution often favors such strategies when predators are abundant, and the rivers of the Permian were certainly filled with danger. The survival of Diplocaulus also depended on reproduction, though direct evidence is scarce. By examining modern amphibians, paleontologists infer that breeding likely occurred in shallow waters, with males and females engaging in aquatic displays. The wide skull may even have served as a visual signal during courtship, exaggerating size and strength. If so, the boomerang head was not only a tool of survival, but also a badge of fitness, a feature that shaped the very future of the species through sexual selection. Predator-prey relationships reveal further layers of complexity. Dimetrodon, often portrayed as the apex predator of its time, would have posed a constant threat to river dwellers like Diplocaulus. Fossils of Dimetrodon have been found near waterways, suggesting it hunted at the edges where amphibians gathered. Diplocaulus, with its unusual body plan, may have relied on sudden dives or swift turns to escape. The hydrofoil hypothesis gains weight in this context, for an animal capable of rapid movement in water had a better chance of surviving against such formidable hunters. Evolution, after all, is often a race between offense and defense, and Diplocaulus's head may have been its shield in that race. The boomerang skull also shaped the sensory world of Diplocaulus. The placement of its eyes on the top of the head suggests a lifestyle similar to modern ambush predators like crocodiles. By keeping most of its body submerged, only its eyes and nostrils exposed, Diplocaulus could watch for prey while remaining hidden. The wide skull gave it an even lower profile, flattening its silhouette against the water surface. This stealth would have made it an effective hunter, one that relied on patience and timing rather than raw speed alone. Such behavior fits well with the image of a river lurker gliding quietly until the perfect moment to strike. As climates shifted, the challenges grew harsher. The late Permian was marked by increasing dryness, with forests retreating and wetlands shrinking. For an amphibian so dependent on water, these changes were catastrophic. Diplocaulus, once widespread and successful, found its habitats disappearing. Fossils show a decline in numbers leading up to the Great Permian extinction, evidence of a gradual struggle before the final collapse. When the mass extinction struck, eliminating over 90% of life, Diplocaulus was among the countless casualties. Its lineage ended, its rivers dried, its adaptations lost to history. Yet its absence paved the way for reptiles and eventually mammals to rise, a reminder of how extinction clears paths for new forms of life. The scientific journey to understand Diplocaulus mirrors the animal's own enigmatic nature. For decades, debates raged about the function of its skull. Each new hypothesis brought both clarity and more questions. Was it a hydrodynamic wing, a predator deterrent, or a display feature? The truth may be that it served all these roles at once, a multifunctional adaptation shaped by multiple pressures. Nature rarely designs for one purpose alone. Instead, traits often balance survival, reproduction, and defense, creating forms that appear bizarre but are deeply practical in their time. Diplocaulus continues to inspire fascination not only because of what we know, but because of what we cannot know. The soft tissues that once covered its bones are gone, leaving gaps in our understanding. Did it have vivid colors for display? Did it communicate with others of its kind through sounds or movements? These mysteries remind us that fossils, though rich in information, are incomplete windows into the past. We reconstruct what we can, guided by science and imagination, but the full truth of Diplocaulus's life remains locked in time. For audiences today, the story of Diplocaulus resonates as a tale of survival, adaptation, and ultimate extinction. It illustrates how evolution experiments endlessly, producing designs that may seem impractical but endure for millions of years. It challenges us to broaden our sense of what life can be, to accept that the natural world is often stranger than our imagination. When we see the boomerang head of Diplocaulus, we are not just looking at a fossil. We are looking at the creative force of evolution itself, frozen in stone. The rivers of the Permian have long since vanished, but through the bones of Diplocaulus, we can still glimpse them. We can imagine the dappled light filtering through ancient trees, the currents swirling with fish, the sudden flash of movement as a boomerang-headed amphibian darts forward. We can hear the silence after a predator's failed strike, the whisper of water over smooth stones, the eternal cycle of life and death playing out in a world alien yet familiar. Diplocaulus was part of that world, a creature perfectly adapted to its time, and its story continues to flow through ours as we seek to understand the history of life on Earth. The very shape of Diplocaulus forces us to rethink how form and function intertwine in evolution. In many animals, we see beauty and symmetry, efficiency, and refinement. But in Diplocaulus, the appeal lies in its awkwardness, a design that seems almost clumsy, yet endured for millions of years. Its boomerang skull was not sleek, but it was effective. And in that effectiveness lies the brilliance of natural selection. By thriving in rivers where others perished, it proved that success is measured not by elegance, but by survival across ages. Each fossil bed containing Diplocaulus is like a frozen moment in time. Layers of silt and clay reveal not only the skeletons of these amphibians, but also the traces of the world they inhabited, impressions of plants, remains of fish, and even ripple marks from ancient currents surround the bones. To study these fossils is to reconstruct a living scene, one where Diplocaulus lay hidden in the shallows, its boomerang head cutting the water as insects buzzed overhead and predators lurked at the edges. Such reconstructions make the past tangible, reminding us that these were not abstractions, but living creatures with struggles and instincts. The evolutionary lineage of Diplocaulus is also a puzzle. It belonged to a group called lepospondals, small amphibians with varied body plans. Within this group, Diplocaulus stood out as an outlier, its exaggerated skull unlike anything else. This divergence raises questions about the pressures that shaped it. Why did one branch develop such a peculiar form while others remained more conventional? The answer may lie in the rivers themselves. Perhaps in certain environments, the ability to ride currents or appear too large to swallow offered a decisive advantage, pushing natural selection toward this extreme design. Specimens from different regions suggest that Diplocaulus was not confined to one habitat. Some fossils come from open floodplains, others from narrower channels. Such diversity hints at adaptability, an ability to thrive in varied aquatic conditions. This adaptability would have been key to its survival, especially during the unpredictable climates of the Permian. While many amphibians dwindled as conditions changed, Diplocaulus persisted, its design resilient enough to meet shifting demands. The wide skull may even have played multiple roles depending on the environment, serving as a hydrodynamic aid in fast currents and as a defensive barrier in predator-rich pools. The story of Diplocaulus also underscores the interplay between predator and prey in shaping evolution. Dimetrodon, Eryops, and other formidable hunters of the time exerted constant pressure on smaller animals. In response, prey evolved armor, camouflage, speed, or unusual defenses. Diplocaulus's skull was part of this arms race, a creative solution that made it harder to catch and swallow. This co-evolutionary dance defines much of life's history, with each adaptation by predators met by a counter-adaptation in prey. The boomerang head is a fossilized echo of that eternal struggle. Modern technology has deepened our understanding of Diplocaulus in ways unimaginable to early paleontologists. CT scans allow scientists to peer inside fossilized skulls, revealing the structure of canals and cavities that once carried nerves and blood vessels. Digital reconstructions place these animals back in simulated rivers, testing how water would have flowed around their heads. Each study refines our image of how Diplocaulus lived, swam, and hunted. Yet for all the advances, some mysteries remain, a reminder that deep time always keeps its secrets. Beyond science, the image of Diplocaulus resonates with the human imagination. Its outline is striking, almost emblematic, a creature that looks like it belongs in legend. In some ways, it embodies the archetype of the strange and forgotten, a reminder of worlds that existed long before ours. It is easy to picture it gliding through murky waters, a shadow beneath the surface, its crescent head marking it as a denizen of another age. This sense of wonder is part of what drives interest in paleontology, the recognition that the Earth has been home to forms stranger than fiction. The disappearance of Diplocaulus is both tragic and instructive. It shows how even successful designs can be undone by environmental upheaval. When rivers dried and climates shifted, the adaptations that once ensured survival became burdens. Amphibians like Diplocaulus were trapped by their dependence on water, unable to transition fully to land as reptiles had done. Their extinction cleared ecological space for new dominance, paving the way for the rise of reptiles, dinosaurs, and eventually mammals. The fall of Diplocaulus thus became part of the larger cycle of life, where endings create beginnings. To modern eyes, Diplocaulus may look alien, but it was as real as any animal alive today. Its fossils bridge the gap between imagination and reality, grounding myth-like forms in scientific evidence. In studying them, we glimpse not only the creature itself, but the broader patterns of life's history. Evolution is full of experiments, some fleeting, others enduring. Diplocaulus was one such experiment, lasting long enough to carve a legacy in stone but ultimately succumbing to forces beyond its control. As paleontologists continue to unearth and study these fossils, the story of Diplocaulus grows richer. Each new discovery adds detail, whether a juvenile skeleton that sheds light on growth or a fragment that expands its geographic range. Piece by piece, we assemble the puzzle. Though some pieces will always be missing, in those gaps lies room for imagination, for the storytelling that brings fossils to life for broader audiences. Diplocaulus becomes not just a specimen in a museum drawer, but a living actor in the grand narrative of evolution. And so, when we speak of strange amphibians, Diplocaulus stands as a symbol. It is a reminder that survival often requires innovation, that the natural world is a canvas of endless possibility, and that the line between the ordinary and the bizarre is thinner than we think. In its boomerang head, we see both the ingenuity of evolution and the fleeting nature of existence. Its story is not just about an amphibian in ancient rivers. It is about the resilience, creativity, and vulnerability of life itself. The world that Diplocaulus inhabited was not static, but in constant flux. During the late Carboniferous and Permian, continents shifted, climates altered, and ecosystems adapted to changing pressures. Swamp forests that once dominated vast landscapes began to shrink, replaced by drier plains. Amphibians like Diplocaulus thrived in waterways, but these waterways became increasingly fragmented. Each pool, stream, and river became an island of survival, demanding resilience and adaptability from those who lived within them. In this patchwork world, the boomerang-headed amphibian persisted, an emblem of determination in uncertain times. To imagine its daily existence, one must step into the ancient rivers themselves. The water was murky with sediments, alive with fish that flashed like quicksilver, and crustaceans that scuttled along the bottom. Dragonflies with wingspans the size of modern hawks zipped above the surface, casting fleeting shadows. Beneath this chaos, Diplocaulus glided in silence, its body pressed low, its crescent head cutting smoothly through the current. At times it lay motionless, a living stone before exploding into motion with a sudden lunge at unsuspecting prey. Its feeding may not have been graceful, but it was efficient, and efficiency is the ultimate currency of survival. Encounters with predators must have been frequent. In shallow waters lurked massive amphibians like Eryops, whose sheer bulk made them formidable threats. On the banks, Dimetrodon basked, ever watchful for movement in the shallows. For Diplocaulus, escape was a constant necessity, and its adaptations reflect this reality. To slip through the currents with minimal effort meant energy conserved for the next chase or the next escape. Its broad skull may have hindered it on land, but in water it became an ally, a shield against both turbulence and teeth. Each successful evasion was another step in the endless dance between life and death. The fossil record captures not only the physical form of Diplocaulus, but hints at the ecological tapestry it wove. Fossilized plants tell us that the rivers were shaded by forests of towering lycopsids and seed ferns. Fallen branches created submerged shelters, while root systems trapped sediments into tangled webs. Diplocaulus would have navigated this environment with ease, slipping between obstacles, its head steadying it against unpredictable flows. It was not a creature of open waters, but of rivers that shifted with seasons, expanding with floods and shrinking during droughts. In such cycles, resilience was everything. and resilience was the story of its lineage. Scientists who study Diplocaulus often remark on the ingenuity of its form. Few creatures embody the principle of evolutionary experimentation so vividly. Its skull lobes may seem exaggerated, even absurd, but they embody adaptation at its most creative. Whether aiding swimming, deterring predators, or attracting mates, the head of Diplocaulus represents a solution forged by millions of years of trial and error. In this sense, the fossil is not just a skeleton, but a record of evolutionary problem-solving, preserved in stone for us to decipher. Every ridge, every curve of bone carries meaning, even if that meaning remains partly hidden. In the public imagination, prehistoric animals are often reduced to dinosaurs, towering reptiles that dominate popular culture. Yet amphibians like Diplocaulus remind us that before dinosaurs, there was another era of giants and oddities. This amphibian did not roar or tower, but it shaped its ecosystem in subtle and essential ways. Its presence in rivers influenced prey populations, provided sustenance for predators, and filled ecological niches at a time when life was still experimenting with how to live on land and in water. To neglect such creatures is to miss an entire chapter of Earth's story, one where amphibians were rulers, not footnotes. The fate of Diplocaulus is tied to the broader arc of the Permian extinction, the most devastating event in Earth's history. As volcanic activity reshaped climates and oxygen levels dropped, waterways became inhospitable. Amphibians tied to these habitats suffered catastrophic losses. Diplocaulus, despite millions of years of success, could not withstand the combined pressures of climate change, habitat loss, and new competitors. Its extinction was not the failure of an individual design, but part of a planetary collapse that erased entire lineages. In this light, the fossils we find are both triumphs of survival and epitaphs of loss. Yet the story does not end with extinction. The memory of Diplocaulus persists through the work of paleontologists and the imagination of storytellers. Each new generation encounters its strange form and asks, why? That question fuels research, drawing connections between past and present. In studying the hydrodynamics of its skull, scientists also learn principles that apply to modern biology and even engineering. In considering its extinction, we are reminded of the fragility of ecosystems today. Diplocaulus becomes a messenger from deep time, carrying lessons about adaptation, resilience, and the limits of survival. The lasting fascination with this amphibian also lies in its uniqueness. There are few, if any, creatures like it in the history of life. Its silhouette, alone, once seen, is never forgotten. It is as much a symbol as it is a species, representing the creativity of evolution and the unpredictability of survival. In classrooms, museums, and documentaries, Diplocaulus is presented not just as an oddity, but as a case study in how life can take paths we would never expect. Its strangeness becomes its strength, ensuring that it remains etched in our collective imagination. To think of Diplocaulus is to think of a river haunted by crescent shapes, each gliding silently in the depths. It is to imagine the shimmer of fish scattering at its approach, the flash of movement as it feeds, the tension of predators watching from the banks. It is to remember that the world before us was filled with creatures that defy our categories, creatures that lived, thrived, and vanished long before humanity appeared. Diplocaulus was one of them, a creature stranger than fiction, and yet entirely real. Its bones speak, and if we listen closely, they tell us the story of an amphibian that once mastered the rivers of an ancient Earth. The continued survival of Diplocaulus across vast stretches of time shows that its peculiar design was not a fleeting experiment but a proven strategy. Generations of these amphibians thrived in rivers and floodplains, each shaped by the same peculiar skull. To endure for millions of years, a creature must fit its environment perfectly. and Diplocaulus did just that. It is a reminder that success in evolution is measured not by appearances, but by longevity, by how long a lineage can persist against the endless trials of nature. Some paleontologists suggest that the strange head of Diplocaulus may even have influenced how it interacted with its environment beyond hydrodynamics and defense. The wide, flat extensions might have allowed it to anchor itself in fast-moving waters, pressing against currents while waiting in ambush. In this sense, the head could have functioned as both a stabilizer and a weapon of patience, letting the creature hold its ground as prey swam past. Such a dual role highlights the flexibility of evolutionary adaptations, where one feature serves multiple purposes in the struggle for survival. Diplocaulus also raises questions about growth and development. Juvenile fossils show proportionally smaller skull lobes that expanded as the animal matured. This growth pattern suggests that the full benefit of the boomerang head may not have been needed in the early stages of life. Instead, young relied on concealment and speed, while adults, larger and more conspicuous, depended on the exaggerated skull for hydrodynamic lift and predator deterrence. This transition mirrors strategies seen in modern amphibians, where life stages are tailored to specific ecological needs. The broader ecological role of Diplocaulus remains open to exploration. As a mid-level predator, it likely shaped the populations of smaller fish and invertebrates, keeping them in balance. At the same time, it provided food for larger predators, acting as a crucial link in the food web. Without such creatures, ecosystems falter, and the fossil record suggests that Diplocaulus's presence was steady and widespread. Its extinction, therefore, would have sent ripples through its environment, altering the dynamics of ancient rivers in ways we can only imagine. For scientists, the thrill of studying Diplocaulus lies not only in solving mysteries, but in embracing the unknown. Every fossil sparks new debates, each interpretation shifting our understanding. Was the skull primarily defensive, hydrodynamic, or ornamental? Did it influence mating behavior? Could it have served purposes we have not yet conceived? These questions keep the field alive, reminding us that paleontology is not about final answers, but about continuous discovery. Diplocaulus stands as a symbol of this process, a riddle that resists simple explanations and encourages curiosity. The fascination with Diplocaulus extends into popular culture precisely because it seems unreal. Its outline, so distinct, makes it an icon of prehistoric life. It embodies the idea that nature is stranger than any myth, that the earth has been home to creatures beyond our imagination. In art, literature, and even digital media, it is often portrayed as a fantastical beast, yet its reality surpasses any invention. This blurring of science and imagination strengthens its appeal, drawing people into the story of life long before humanity. Extinction, however, frames the narrative with melancholy. Diplocaulus did not fade quietly, but vanished amid the chaos of the Permian extinction, when environmental upheavals reshaped the planet. Rising temperatures, fluctuating sea levels, and declining oxygen stripped away the habitats it depended on. Amphibians across the globe suffered, and even the versatile Diplocaulus could not adapt fast enough. Its lineage ended, another casualty in Earth's greatest biological crisis. Yet through fossils, it continues to live, a reminder that even the most peculiar forms once thrived in abundance. The story of Diplocaulus also reflects on resilience and fragility, two sides of the same evolutionary coin. For tens of millions of years, it was resilient, enduring predators, competition, and shifting environments. But when the scale of change grew too vast, that resilience broke, revealing the fragility that underlies all life. This duality makes its narrative powerful, echoing themes that resonate with us today as we face our own ecological challenges. Diplocaulus becomes not only a subject of paleontology, but a metaphor for the balance of survival in uncertain worlds. To hold a fossil of Diplocaulus is to feel the weight of time itself. The smooth curve of its skull, preserved in stone, carries the memory of rivers that have not flowed for hundreds of millions of years. Each ridge and groove is a signature of a life once lived, a creature that swam, hunted, and fled in waters long since vanished. These fossils bridge the unimaginable gulf of deep time, making the distant past tangible. They remind us that Earth's history is not just about continents and climates, but about individual lives, each adaptation a response to the challenges of its day. In the end, Diplocaulus represents the richness of life's history in all its diversity and unpredictability. It challenges our sense of normality, expands our vision of what evolution can create, and invites us to see beauty in the bizarre. Its boomerang head, once an enigma, now stands as a testament to the ingenuity of nature. Though the rivers it swam have dried, and the predators it evaded are gone, its legacy endures, etched into stone and into our imagination. Through Diplocaulus, we glimpse not only an ancient amphibian, but the vast creativity of life itself, ever experimenting, ever adapting, ever changing. To picture Diplocaulus fully, we must imagine not just its body, but its movements, the way it turned its head against currents, the way it lingered at the bottom before rising with slow grace. In life, it was not a static skeleton, but a living, breathing amphibian, its skin damp and patterned to blend with its surroundings. Perhaps its coloration matched the riverbeds, mottled like stone or shadowed like plants, providing camouflage as it waited for prey. Every detail, though lost to fossilization, can be inferred from modern analogs, and these inferences breathe life into what might otherwise remain cold stone. Encounters between Diplocaulus and its rivals would have been dramatic. Imagine an Eryops, massive and lumbering, entering the same pool. Its sheer bulk would churn the water, sending smaller creatures fleeing. Diplocaulus, with its boomerang head, would have to choose: remain hidden in the mud or dart away into deeper water. Each decision was a gamble, each movement a calculation of survival. Such moments happened countless times across millions of years, and each successful escape ensured that the lineage endured. Evolution is not decided in abstractions, but in those tense seconds when life hangs in the balance. The rivers themselves were dynamic arenas. Seasonal floods reshaped channels, uprooted plants, and redistributed silt. In times of abundance, prey would have been plentiful, and Diplocaulus could feed well. But in times of scarcity, competition would intensify. Predators circling closer, prey harder to find. Fossils hint at mass death events, layers where many creatures are preserved together, perhaps the result of droughts or sudden floods. Within these layers, the bones of Diplocaulus rest alongside those of fish and reptiles, evidence that its fate was tied intimately to the fortunes of its environment. Diplocaulus may also have played a role in shaping its ecosystem simply by existing in numbers. Predators adapt to the most common prey, and if Diplocaulus was abundant, then predators were forced to contend with its difficult shape. This pressure may have influenced predator behavior, pushing them toward other targets or driving evolutionary changes of their own. Thus, even a creature defined by its defense had ripple effects far beyond itself, influencing the balance of life in ancient rivers. Evolution is never a solitary journey. It is a web where each strand tugs at another. The extinction of Diplocaulus did not erase its story, because its fossils preserved it against the oblivion of time. Each skull unearthed is a conversation with the past, a chance to hold in our hands the evidence of a world that once teemed with forms so different from our own. Museums that display Diplocaulus skulls often see visitors stop, stare, and smile at its oddity. Children point and laugh, adults lean closer to read, and everyone asks the same question: Why was it shaped that way? That question is the spark, the connection across 250 million years that makes paleontology so vital. As we reflect on its life, we are reminded that strangeness is often the hallmark of resilience. The head of Diplocaulus may seem like an eccentric design, but it carried the animal through ages of change and danger. Strangeness is not weakness. It can be strength, forged by pressures invisible to us today. When we study its fossils, we study not a mistake of nature, but a triumph of adaptation. Its legacy is not just the bones and rock, but the lesson that survival often looks unusual when viewed through the lens of deep time. And so the rivers flow again in our imagination, filled with the shapes of creatures long gone. Diplocaulus glides beneath the surface, its wide head steering it through the currents, its eyes watching from the shadows. Above, insects buzz and plants sway, and along the banks predators wait. It is a scene that played out for millions of years, unchanging and eternal, until the world shifted and the rivers dried. Today it survives only in stone and story, but in that story it is immortal. Diplocaulus remains, the lizard with a boomerang head, forever strange, forever part of the grand history of life. The story of Diplocaulus is not just about a single amphibian, but about the entire tapestry of life that surrounded it. Every adaptation it carried was shaped by interactions with countless other species, each with their own strategies for survival. Insects grew to monstrous sizes in the oxygen-rich air, while fish developed armored scales to ward off attacks. Predators evolved teeth, claws, and speed, while prey evolved defenses, camouflage, and strange body forms like the boomerang head. It was a world in constant motion, a grand experiment where success and failure were written in every skeleton. What makes Diplocaulus especially fascinating is that it straddles the line between the familiar and the alien. Its body is recognizable: 4 legs, a tail, the outline of a salamander writ large, yet its head transforms it into something entirely unique, a creature that seems plucked from imagination rather than reality. That duality captures attention, for it reminds us that evolution can twist the ordinary into the extraordinary with just a few changes. The result is an animal that is both understandable and bewildering, a mirror of the creativity that shapes all life. Paleontologists often compare Diplocaulus to modern animals to help explain its adaptations. Crocodiles, for example, also keep their eyes and nostrils positioned on top of the skull, allowing them to remain hidden while watching the surface. Flat-bodied fish use their shape to resist currents in rivers, anchoring themselves against the flow. In combining these traits with its unique skull, Diplocaulus forged a lifestyle that balanced concealment, stability, and predation. It was not the fastest or strongest creature of its time, but it was clever in its design, embodying the principle that evolution rewards function, not flash. The boomerang skull also invites speculation about sensory abilities. The broad surface area may have amplified vibrations in the water, giving Diplocaulus a heightened awareness of its surroundings. If so, it could sense approaching predators or detect the subtle movements of prey, adding another layer of advantage to its design. While the fossil record cannot confirm this directly, comparisons with modern aquatic animals suggest that such sensitivity would have been invaluable. In rivers teeming with danger, the ability to feel the water itself could mean the difference between ambush and escape. Diplocaulus' global distribution further underscores its success. Fossils have been found not only in North America, but also in Africa, suggesting that it spread widely across the supercontinent of Pangaea. This distribution implies a flexibility that allowed it to adapt to different river systems, climates, and prey bases. Such adaptability is rare in highly specialized creatures, but Diplocaulus managed to balance specialization with resilience. Its form was peculiar, yet its function was versatile enough to endure across continents, an achievement few amphibians could match. Despite its triumphs, Diplocaulus remained vulnerable to forces beyond its control. Climate change reshaped habitats, altering water levels and vegetation. Volcanic activity released gases that destabilized ecosystems, while shifting continents disrupted rainfall patterns. These vast forces pressed down on life with relentless weight, and even the most ingenious adaptations bent under the strain. Diplocaulus was no exception, and as the Permian extinction deepened, it faded from the rivers it once ruled. Its bones settled into silt, the last traces of a lineage that had endured for millions of years. Today, those bones are treasures, fragments of a story that would otherwise be lost. In laboratories and museums, they are cleaned, studied, and reconstructed, each step peeling back layers of mystery. Children gazing at their strange outlines see a creature that feels magical, while scientists see a puzzle piece in the history of evolution. Both views are valid, for Diplocaulus is both science and wonder, a reminder that the past belongs to all who seek to understand it. Its fossils are not merely rocks but messengers, carrying whispers of a world that shaped the future we inhabit. The legacy of Diplocaulus endures not only in science, but in the imagination of all who encounter it. It teaches us that evolution is a story of endless creativity, that survival takes forms we might never predict, and that extinction, though final, does not erase memory. In every skull with its outstretched lobes, we see a testament to resilience, a record of life's experiments, and a symbol of nature's boundless invention. Diplocaulus was strange, yes, but it was also successful, enduring far longer than many creatures we consider more impressive. That endurance is its true legacy, carved into stone and carried forward in story. And so the rivers of the Permian remain alive in our minds. They flow not with water, but with memory, filled with creatures that defy expectation. Diplocaulus swims there still, its boomerang head slicing the currents, its eyes watching as predators and prey circle endlessly. The scene is silent, eternal, preserved in fossils and imagination alike. To tell its story is to bring that silence to life, to give voice to a creature that lived, thrived, and vanished, but that will never be forgotten. To imagine the sensory world of Diplocaulus is to step into a realm where sight, sound, and vibration blended into a different reality than our own. With eyes positioned high on its skull, it could keep much of its body hidden while scanning for movement above. The water carried vibrations that rippled across its wide head, alerting it to dangers and opportunities alike. Perhaps it lived in a constant state of awareness, always on edge, attuned to the invisible signals of its watery home. For a creature balanced between predator and prey, such heightened perception was vital. Life in the rivers meant routine, but it was never without risk. Days may have passed in stillness, Diplocaulus lying flat at the bottom, waiting for the right moment to strike. A darting fish, a drifting insect, each became sustenance in a world where every meal mattered. Yet in an instant, calm could give way to chaos as the shadow of a predator loomed above. Then the boomerang head became a shield, the streamlined form a means of escape. This cycle of quiet patience and sudden terror defined its existence, a rhythm written into every generation that followed. Its reproductive cycle, though hidden from us, must also have been tied closely to water. Like modern amphibians, Diplocaulus probably laid eggs in shallow pools, the young hatching into larvae with external gills. These larvae were especially vulnerable, their small size making them easy prey for fish and insects. But as they grew, their bodies lengthened, their limbs strengthened, and their skull lobes began to expand. Each stage of growth carried new challenges, and only those with the right blend of luck and adaptation survived to adulthood. Evolution played its hand not in single moments but across countless lifetimes. The Permian landscape was a shifting canvas, Forests of giant trees cast heavy shadows, and when they fell, they transformed rivers into tangled mazes of roots and debris. Diplocaulus may have used these obstacles as cover, gliding between branches, hiding from predators, or lying in ambush. Seasonal changes brought floods that spread nutrients and prey across the land, followed by dry spells that shrank waterways into pools where life crowded together. In those pools, competition was fierce, and survival became even harder. Yet, through all these cycles, Diplocaulus endured, a constant presence in an ever-changing world. Predators shaped its life as much as the rivers did. Dimetrodon, with its tall sail and sharp teeth, prowled the edges of swamps, striking fear into everything nearby. Giant amphibians, like Eryops, waded in the same waters, ready to engulf anything smaller than themselves. Against such giants, Diplocaulus had little chance in direct confrontation. Its survival lay not in strength, but in agility and design, in the ability to turn quickly, to slip away into depths, to be too awkward to swallow. Every predator that failed to catch it was part of the proof that its strange form worked. The fossil record captures these truths in silence. A skull unearthed from red stone, its boomerang outline still sharp, is testimony to countless lives lived in ancient waters. Each fossil is not just an individual, but a window into an entire ecosystem, a fragment of the web of life that once pulsed across Pangaea. Scientists trace growth lines in the bones, measure angles, and build digital models, each step bringing us closer to understanding. But fossils also remind us of the limits of knowledge. We may never know the exact color of its skin, the exact sound it made, the exact ways it hunted. Those mysteries remain part of its allure. What we do know is that Diplocaulus lasted far longer than many creatures considered more impressive. Its peculiar design, ridiculed by some as ungainly, carried it across ages, across continents, across ecological upheavals. Strangeness became survival, and survival became success. In its persistence, Diplocaulus teaches us that evolution is not about perfection, but about possibility. Even the most unlikely shapes can carve a path through time if they fit their world well enough. That lesson is etched into every fossil, a quiet defiance against the idea that beauty and efficiency always go hand in hand. When extinction finally came, it was not a single event, but a cascade of crises. Volcanic eruptions darkened skies, climates swung wildly, oxygen levels dropped, and ecosystems collapsed. Amphibians, already tied tightly to water, found their habitats shrinking and their eggs drying. Diplocaulus, once widespread, dwindled as rivers turned unreliable and prey vanished. Its lineage fell silent in the shadow of Earth's greatest dying, its adaptations overwhelmed by forces too vast to resist. Yet in that silence, fossils endured, carrying forward the shape of its story to those who would one day uncover it. Today, to see a Diplocaulus fossil is to connect with that story. Its skull, wide and alien, sparks questions that echo far beyond paleontology. Why does evolution create the strange? How do creatures endure for millions of years only to vanish? What can their lives teach us about resilience and vulnerability? Each question ties us more deeply to the history of life, reminding us that our own survival is just one chapter in a far longer book. Diplocaulus, in its strangeness, becomes a teacher, showing that adaptation is limitless but not immortal. And so the rivers of deep time flow again in our imagination. Diplocaulus glides beneath their surface, a shadow of resilience and oddity, a survivor of countless generations. Predators circle, prey dart, the currents shift, and through it all the boomerang head holds steady, proof of nature's endless creativity. Though the rivers are gone, though the world has changed beyond recognition, Diplocaulus remains with us, immortal in stone, immortal in story. Its strangeness ensures that we will never forget it, that we will always marvel at what life can be. The strange silhouette of Diplocaulus is more than a curiosity. It is a signature of a vanished world. To trace its outline is to step into an era when amphibians shaped ecosystems, when rivers thrummed with life forms that now seem impossible. Its boomerang head, puzzling to our eyes, was once a perfectly sensible adaptation to a dangerous environment. What looks odd in the present was logical in the past, for survival always dictates design. This truth runs through every fossil, and in Diplocaulus it speaks louder than most. It is tempting to imagine Diplocaulus as an isolated marvel, but its story is intertwined with the fate of countless other species. The rivers that carried it also carried armored fish, giant insects and predators, whose shadows loomed over the water. Each encounter, each choice of when to strike and when to flee, stitched its life into the broader fabric of the Permian. Its survival was not just its own triumph, but part of a web of balances that sustained ancient ecosystems. When it vanished, that web was torn, another thread lost in the unraveling of deep time. The fossils we hold today are fragile, yet they have outlasted mountains and seas. To see the bones of Diplocaulus set in stone is to realize that time preserves not just forms, but ideas. The idea of adaptation, the idea of persistence through strangeness, the idea that even the oddest shapes can endure. Each skull whispers of rivers long gone, of generations that rose and fell before humanity was even possible. In their silence, they teach us to listen carefully, to imagine boldly, to respect the vastness of life's history. When children point at its fossils and laugh at its peculiar head, they are unknowingly sharing in that lesson. Wonder is the beginning of understanding, and strangeness is the spark of curiosity. Diplocaulus captures both, ensuring that it remains alive in imagination even as its bones lie still. It bridges the gap between science and story, reminding us that to learn about life, we must first marvel at it. And in marveling, we honor not just Diplocaulus, but the entire lineage of amphibians that came before and after it. Extinction may have silenced Diplocaulus in its rivers, but it could not erase its impact. Its survival for millions of years demonstrates the resilience of amphibians, the creativity of evolution, and the fragility of even the most successful adaptations. It lived in a world that no longer exists, faced predators that are long gone, and navigated currents that have dried forever. Yet through fossils, through research, and through storytelling, it lives again. It is not forgotten, nor will it be, so long as curiosity endures. The conclusion of its story is not despair, but perspective. Diplocaulus shows us that survival does not always favor the ordinary, that evolution often rewards the unusual. It endured not because it was perfect, but because it was suited to its time. That lesson resonates today, reminding us that life adapts in unexpected ways, and that resilience often looks strange when viewed through the lens of history. To celebrate Diplocaulus is to celebrate the creativity of life itself, to recognize that what is bizarre to us was once the key to survival, and so the rivers of memory carry it forward. The lizard, with a boomerang head, glides through ancient waters in our imagination, a symbol of survival, of strangeness, of time's relentless flow. It invites us to see the past not as distant but as connected, for the same forces that shape Diplocaulus still shape us. Evolution continues, extinction looms, adaptation endures. In the story of this amphibian, we see echoes of our own, reminders that life's greatest strength is its endless capacity for change. The last echoes of Diplocaulus faded long before the first dinosaurs walked the earth, but its legacy has lasted through stone and story. Each fossil is a monument to resilience, proof that survival often wears unusual shapes. It invites us to imagine rivers alive with strange silhouettes, to picture a world where amphibians ruled as masters of water and land. That vision is as vital as any tale of dinosaurs, for it reminds us that prehistory is not one story but many, woven together across unimaginable spans of time. To end with extinction is sobering, but extinction is never the whole story. The bones left behind continue to teach, to inspire, to challenge our sense of what life can be. Diplocaulus tells us that even the strangest forms can endure for millions of years, and that adaptation is the language of survival. It may be gone, but its presence in our imagination is proof that no creature is ever truly lost when its story is told. And so we close the rivers of the Permian, letting their waters recede back into memory. The amphibian with the boomerang head slips beneath the surface one last time, leaving ripples that stretch across ages, touching us here and now. Its shape, its strangeness, its survival, these remain with us, etched in stone and in mind. Through Diplocaulus, we glimpse both the fragility and the brilliance of life, forever strange, forever enduring. If you found yourself fascinated by the mystery of Diplocaulus and the strange world it inhabited, don't let the story end here. There are countless other forgotten creatures waiting to be rediscovered, each with their own lessons carved in bone. Join us as we continue to explore the hidden chapters of prehistoric life, where survival and strangeness walk hand in hand. Like this video, share it with others who love the wonders of ancient life, and subscribe to the channel for more journeys into deep time. Your support helps us bring these forgotten worlds back to life, one strange creature at a time. Together, we'll keep exploring the endless creativity of evolution and the remarkable stories hidden in the stones beneath our feet.